Welcome back to Enlighten Up. You are listening to episode 8, Michelle Paisley Reid on channeling and messages from the Power of 10, part 1. That's right, we have a very special guest joining us today. Her name is Michelle Paisley Reid, and she is an international #1 best-selling Amazon author. She's written multiple books and multiple screenplays, as well as she's an inspirational speaker and a spirit channeler of a group who call themselves the Power of 10. So later on in the episode, we're going to get into who the Power of 10 is or are. But first, we're going to start talking about what channeling actually is and all things channeling, as well as what Michelle's story is and how she came to be a channeler, because it certainly didn't start out that way. But we're also joined by her husband, Joda, and he gives us some great insight onto the intuition and how we need to stop calling it women's intuition because men have it too. And he gives us an incredible story on that. So let's jump into the episode and find out what everyone had to say, and stay tuned at the end because I'll give you an update on what's coming up in part 2. Welcome back to Enlighten Up. You are joining us for episode number 8, and I am here with Lisa and Michael, and we are excited to have a very special guest speaker join us today. Her name is Michelle Paisley Reid, who is an international #1 best-selling Amazon author. She's written 4 screenplays and 6 books, such as Manifesting Miracles and Money, How to Achieve Peace, Purpose, and Peace is Power, a course in shifting reality through science and spirituality. She's an inspirational speaker as well as a spirit channeler of a group who call themselves the Power of 10. And she also has an upcoming TV show called Don't Change the Channel. Welcome, Michelle, to our show.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Thanks for having us.
You've got a long resume.
Right? Isn't it awesome?
Yeah, it is awesome.
That's what happens when you open up to channeling and you say yes instead of being freaked out by it.
I love that. And I know Lisa loves that.
Yes, I love that.
It has been one amazing year, I've got to tell you, because, I was an author before I wrote those last books. I wrote 3 books on my own. I was a journalist once upon a time, believe it or not. But I wrote the last 3 in the last year and a half. Lickety split, got a publisher, traditional publisher who's wonderful at marketing. And boy, when you channel books, they come out quick because they come out perfect. You don't really have to edit them. And they became, of course, #1 bestsellers, which internationally, which is, I'm still pinching myself, but I shouldn't be. I should trust, because the Power of 10 always told me it would be this huge, but it's still pretty awesome.
Oh, that's so amazing. We're so happy for you. And, to write 3 books in just 18 months is no simple feat. So, but like you said, when it's coming through channeling, I can understand, like, you're getting that pure source energy coming through. So the information is literally truth.
Yeah. And it just comes straight through, it's, if you want the backstory, as far as writing the books, it was just a few months after I started channeling the Power of 10. I woke up one day at 6 a.m. and I heard really clearly, it's time to write a book. And my first thought is, I'm pissed because I'm not a morning person. I want to go back to sleep. But I heard, nope, it's time to write a book. So I get in front of my laptop and I'm sitting there. I wish we had this on film, because I'm waiting for them to animate me like I do when I do live events, and nothing's happening. I'm just sitting there with my fingers over the keyboard. And then I hear their voice. And so I'm very clairaudient and was a medium before I did the channeling. And so I heard it really clearly. So I really just transcribed it in the way that I believe the Course in Miracles was written. I just heard it. And so I just feel like I'm the receptionist. I'm just typing it along, and they'll even catch me and tell me when I need to edit, if I should capitalize something or go back and miss a comma. And so it's funny because when we gave it to our editor, she was afraid to charge my publisher. She's like, I've been at this for years and it's perfect. I'm like, right?
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
So it makes the whole process speed up, and people really resonate to their message right now. I mean, peace isn't that sexy, unless things are in chaos. And right now our planet needs some serious peace.
Oh,
and
I
it
agree.
starts within, right?
Yes.
So that's what they're all about. And you can manifest away all the good stuff, and we're really good manifestors, but these teachings really take it to the next level and start to manifest for everybody so that we can all enjoy peace and prosperity, not just a select few,
Yeah,
it's for everybody.
It is. It's our divine birthright, but we're conditioned to believe from a place of lack.
Yes, and we're in an unlimited universe, which means that you can have anything you want. Our thoughts create our reality. And you can also envision it for someone else because we're all connected, right? All our souls underneath our skin. Our society is so based on our skin and our genitals as our differences. And in spirit, there are no differences. And, the power of 10, they're really just, it's not as woo-woo as you think. They're my spirit guides. And there's 10 of them. But when you don't have a body, you just come together energetically, just like we do in bodies. It's just there's no body to get in the way. So they come together because they have a united message. They're all on the same frequency, the same wavelength. And I'm just the receiver. I just let them come through. I push my ego aside. Years and years of meditation practice, I can do that rather quickly. And, when I let them come through, oh my goodness, it's just their messages are said in a way, and you'll find out later in the show. They're said in a way that I, from a human perspective, can't say. I trip over my own words. I go in different directions when I'm talking. They don't. It's like stream of consciousness. Yeah. And there's no no pause. It's eloquent. It's even a little sensual, which gets me in trouble sometimes.
You won't get in trouble here. On this show, you will not get in trouble. Anything goes, so don't worry about that.
Yay.
So to our audience, stick around because we are going to have a session with the Power of 10, and I can't wait to hear what beautiful messages they're going to share with us. But we also know that you are joined by your husband, Jodas.
Yes, Joda. Like Yoda.
Joda. Sorry, my bad. Joda, how are you?
No, I'm doing wonderfully. I usually explain my name as Yoda with a J just because Yoda's awesome.
I love Yoda. I love Yoda. And I know a lot of people do. So that's perfect. So before we get into Michelle's story, what's it like for you being the husband?
It's a circus every day. No, I'm just kidding. I absolutely love it. I mean, that first morning when she started channeling, she just said, you need to tape what's going to come out of me. And that was pretty much all she said. So I'm like, okay. And so I had started on my, kind of deepening my spiritual path, probably about a year and a half before that. So it wasn't completely out of left field because I had seen, or I'd actually read a little bit of Abraham. So I wasn't completely running out the door, but this has just changed my life so much. I mean, I am in this all the way, and it's awesome.
How would you say it's changed your life? Like, how was in regards to what it was before and how it is now?
It's just the way I look at everything. I mean, when you look at everything from your little human perspective of things that happen to you, thinking that they're actually real, versus looking at things from a higher perspective of, that this is our bodies are just decoration, which is one of the new things that they just said, which I thought I really liked. It's easier to draw the good things to you, and the bad things don't even show up anymore because I just kind of float around in this happy state now, and it's awesome.
You were already married before Michelle started channeling, though, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We've been married for 4.5 years.
Yeah. So you locked that one in. You locked that one in smart, Michelle.
I'm the one that usually forgets because I have no concept of time. So he's actually the one that remembers our anniversary. So we got a little role reversal going on here.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. So that's really refreshing to hear, Joda, because, we just did a podcast that's last week where we talked about men having more of the left brain and women having more of the right brain, which is the more intuitive side. But it's really nice to see a lot more men starting to not block that right side of their brain and open up to it more, because I think it's so empowering for everyone as an individual in finding what you're talking about, like that happiness, that joyous state that you're finding yourself in all the time.
Absolutely. And I think exactly what you said, that men, we're kind of taught to block our intuition because it's called women's intuition. And that's what that's what we grow up with. And of course, if you're too intuitive, then people call you names. And I have been so pleasantly surprised. I shouldn't even be surprised as to listening to my intuition. It's there. It's just, you just practice with it and it gets stronger and stronger. Just a quick story. I had been paying attention to orange cars, orange from California, orange from the East Coast. And I had been noticing a lot of these orange cars over a couple weeks. And then I was in traffic one day and I had actually just gotten a massage. So I was kind of in this kind of trance state. It was great. And I was looking at the opposing traffic at an orange car coming down the hill. And I was about to make a U-turn. And I'm looking at this car and I'm thinking, I don't think that thing's going to stop. And sure enough, it ran the red light and would have plowed right into me. But had I not been paying attention for the past couple of weeks, my eye had really been training in on orange cars. And I was like, wow, that's good confirmation right there.
Yeah.
That's really good confirmation.
That's really living in the now. I've definitely been working on doing a lot more of that, and really just paying attention to everything. Just nature, trees, clouds, sounds, numbers, just, everything that's happening and staying present. And when you stay present, you start seeing those synchronicities, which then just help guide your day. And, that's just where we all need to be, is now.
Yeah. Yes, that's the highest state. And if I might interject and share we had the greatest manifestation this morning because we have a new project that we're working on called Your Life Repurposed. And the people that are in that group, there's 9 of them right now. We only take 10, but they had wanted to get together in person. And of course, my logical mind starts planning and scheming and thinking where we should go and if it should be a yoga retreat. And my mind is spinning and I'm catching myself. And instead, before I went to bed, I just set the intention that we find the perfect place for us all to come together and it'll be beautiful. And I'm present and I go to sleep. Well, this morning we get a random email from a couple in Costa Rica inviting us, 6 of us, to their home and the rest, and to do a workshop there because she read the Power of 10 books, loved them, and she just wants to open up her home to us.
Oh my
gosh.
Like,
wow.
That's wonderful.
That's so funny.
I love it.
Yeah. And we were actually just talking about Costa Rica an hour before this call.
It's really just about letting go.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah.
We were talking about, you were talking about a meditation retreat.
I was.
Oh my gosh.
I was saying I'm looking for a meditation retreat.
Yeah, Anita was the reason I brought this up. And this is why I love when you're with other people. Power of 10 calls it our frequency family. Because when you align like that, these synchronicities just show up and it's just so fun and magical. I love that kind of stuff. My oldest daughter, was just yesterday talking about possibly taking my youngest daughter with her to Costa Rica. And I was telling her my story about I had led a yoga workshop there like 15 years ago. It was a long time ago. And then, I hadn't told that story in eons. And then this just surfaced out of the blue. And I'm talking with her Friday and we're coordinating the details. And yeah, wow.
It's the power of intention. So
you should come.
Wayne.
You guys should come.
Yeah, no, I'm already thinking about it. I'm putting the intention out there, Michelle.
Yes. Yes.
There you go. That's all you got to do, right? If it's supposed to be, it lines up. That's what I'm learning.
Well, there's one thing I've learned is that when you're in the flow and you can allow and you don't feel the need to control everything, the things that can come in can be so much grander than your limited mind can imagine. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
you know how I met Joda? You want a funny story about how I met him? Is that I had a massage and yoga practice called Flow Massage and Yoga. I was trying to stay in the flow of things, and I also taught flow yoga once upon a time. So he comes in as my massage student. Okay, you're not supposed to be attracted to your client. Big no in massage. And but I had been doing the work of wanting to clear out space for a romantic partner. I wasn't really ready to be in a relationship. I was focusing on my career and my books and my kids and stuff. And yet I had really gotten clear and clarity around what type of partner I wanted at this point in my life. And he shows up and I'm like, oh crap, that's it. Like it felt like I put it in order to the universe and it was there. But then I'm like, and I'm shaking, and I just got trained in Reiki. And so I asked him if he'd want some energy work instead. And he doesn't know anything about energy work. And I told him to take his shirt off. Who does that? I'm like, why did I just tell him to take his shirt off? You don't need to do that for Reiki. And I'm like thinking he's hot, and I'm totally shaking. I'm like, I'm going to get my massage license taken away. But then out because we got, we moved in 4 months later, got married a year later. It was total love and awesomeness. And I set the intention from my flow practice, let go of the details. And now here we are living our happily ever after. So, it works even in relationships. It's a little trickier because they have their own soul agreement too, right?
Yes.
But I think that when I was also leading self-love workshops when I met him. Mm-hmm. And that was key because you teach what you're learning, right? And what you need to know. And I think so much of it was just me learning to love me so that I could match with my partner. Yeah.
I always tell her she should have just not said anything. I thought I was getting a massage. I would have gotten naked.
Talk about perks of the job, right?
Right? Thank God he's open-minded.
Well, I wanted to ask you, obviously you didn't start in this field. You were a journalist beforehand.
Yes.
Did you, when you were a child, ever have any experiences that would have been clues that this was going to happen later down the road?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was super sensitive, super psychic as a kid, and my well-intentioned parents are Catholic, like a lot of people, and everything that I came out of my mouth, it was like a psychic reading. They'd tell me that it was Satan and that it was evil, and it scared the crap out of me because I have such loving messages and I couldn't understand it. And my younger sister, she's 5 years younger than I am, and luckily she's my biggest cheerleader. And so she would prod me and ask me questions. And my biggest, when I was about 10 and she was 5, the night before we were getting ready for school, and I told her, don't play on the monkey bars. And she's like, okay. But of course, what does she do? She goes and plays on the monkey bars because I'm her sister and she doesn't listen to me. So the next day I come home from school and she's in the hospital. I had a neighbor pick me up and she had slipped on the bars and broke open her hymen.
Oh
now, my joke when I used to tell this story live is that there are easier and more fun ways to break your hymen. She hates that. But I got scared, right? I thought, oh my God, I created this. Because when you're a kid, everything's about you. And I got rampant stomach aches. I blocked it like crazy, my third chakra, right? And I would know, I toy with it. Like I played with oracle cards and tarot cards when I was in my teens. And I was a cheerleader and I would tell people which team would win and who was going to date who and stupid shit like that. But then in my 20s, I was in college, English major, and I had a near-death experience where bladder infection, antibiotic gone wrong. I was allergic to it. I'm allergic to a lot of antibiotics, but did the whole tunnel into the light. It was phenomenal. And I came back, thunked back, because it's such a jarring experience to go from the unconditional love that is the afterlife back into the body. And I'd never known anything about life after death. I was like 21. And I joke that I brought a little bit of heaven back with me because after that, I was ridiculously psychic. And I went into a depression because I didn't know how to navigate those two worlds, right? I mean, now I know that this unconditional love exists and light, and I feel it, but no one believes me. And to make it worse, I go into journalism and I'm an editor and I know things and I'm acting on instinct, but I'm still terrified of this gift or whatever it is. And so that's when I really dove into yoga and meditation, because it was really to try and find that level of bliss that I found in the afterlife. And so I was big into yoga before yoga was cool. I mean, it really was a dorky thing to do when I was into it, but I practiced it steadily on the side while I was a reporter and editor. And then it was just a few years ago, I got really sick and I had to have surgery. I knew intuitively, see, even if you don't use your intuition for work or business, I knew that something was up. And so I got a mammogram, even though there was no lump or anything. I had pre-breast cancer. I didn't even know that was a thing. So I was able to get away with just having surgery, but without doing any chemo or radiation, thank God. But I was out, right? I couldn't teach yoga. I couldn't do massage. I couldn't do any of the physical things that I was doing right then. So I had a time out, and I just did lots and lots of healing meditations and hypnotherapy. And during that healing time, I knew I was supposed to move on to my higher calling. I knew that there was something I was here to do. That's why I came back to life. And dead people would talk to me and I'd tell them to shut up because I was trying to find my purpose. It was literally in front of me. And I'm like, I was terrified of the judgment. And, but then something in me just kept saying, it got so strong, I had to say yes. And so synchronistically, I would line up with people. When I went back to teaching yoga, there was a woman that I met up with, and I started teaching Reiki infused yoga, and she was really into the Reiki, and she just moved here from back east, and they have such a big psychic mediumship community in the East Coast. And so she started getting me clients before I knew that's what I'm doing. I'm like, I'm not a psychic. I don't do this. And she's like, you're better than most of the people I pay lots of money to. So we had to literally hurry up. Joda whipped up a website with no advertising. I was getting clients daily, all day long, while I'm still recovering from this surgery. And I'm like blown away that this is happening just by using my natural gifts once I said yes to it. Because I have all the clairs. I'm clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient. I have all of them. Blessed or cursed, whatever it is, I have it. And so for me, I had to learn how to turn it up and turn it down. For me, it's more managing it so I don't get overwhelmed when I'm trying to be social. And so what happened is something told me to go to a John Holland, not John Edward. He's the same, only different. He's another famous medium, a Hay House author, and he was leading this workshop on how to do demonstrations. And I'd really felt drawn to the stage, even though I was terrified of it. And so I went to this training, and it was there that I got introduced to the power of 10 because Joda was working. He couldn't come with me this trip. And I was meditating by myself because I was nervous. I was going to be evaluated by some of the best mediums in the world. And I'd only been doing it like a year. And so I'm feeling really naive. But something in me kept telling me yes. And you have to honor that intuitive call, right? And so I'm meditating and I hear, we like to see you succeeding. And I'm like, well, isn't that nice? But I'm thinking it's someone's deceased grandma, right? I'm not at that point thinking anything because I honestly thought channels were weird. Other than Abraham Hicks, I was really into Esther Hicks and the law of attraction teachings. But beyond that, I've just never really been into channeling. So I let it go and I didn't think anything of it. I did really well on the evaluation. And during that evaluation, they said, you're a natural at, you literally, I can't even think of the word for it now. It's when you take on the facial characteristics of the spirit, where you're literally seeing through their eyes. And I freaked out because I'm like, of course, like everyone else, I've probably watched too many horror movies, even though I hate them. And I'm like, am I being possessed? Because that's not cool.
Well, I think
and I was terrified. And they're like, look, you get to control this. If it's a loving energy, through the law of attraction, like attracts like, you cannot attract negative, dark energies if you yourself are light-filled. It's a scientific impossibility. If something feels off, say no. If it feels wonderful, you have this natural gift to allow them to come through. So that really encouraged me that, okay, this is normal, and it's a thing that mediums actually try to do, but it's you can't really try to make it happen.
Well, it's nice to know you have control.
Yeah.
Like for me, I find the same thing with light language. Like at first when it started, I didn't know how to control it, and it definitely is overwhelming. But once you realize that you have complete control, then
yes,
it just becomes a really beautiful thing.
It's a really beautiful thing. And you know, I tell people, again, you don't always have to hang out your shingle and do it for work. I mean, it can enhance your life in the most beautiful of ways. And yet I felt called to do this. And when I got home from that training, it was what Joda said. We were in our jammies, and I thank God have an open-minded husband, even though he's as left-brained as they come. He's an engineer by trade. I mean, he designs airplanes. But he sat down with me, and I said, just, you know, I'm going to go into trance, record whatever comes out of me. And those first, I think it's 11 sessions are on our website at wearethepowerof10.com. Those are the rough audio. So right from the start, when we didn't even know what we were doing, and we kept it private, the Power of 10 said, don't share it yet. I have to get used to this. You know, it took a while for me to adjust to their frequency and them to adjust down lower to mine, and to even know if this is something we wanted to share with the world. But then when we did, and I didn't attach my name to it because I already had fans from my other books and my screenplays, so I didn't want it to be about me. I wanted it to be about their message, to see how people would respond. And Joda created a website. Another one. And once he did, oh my God, we started getting these love letters from around the world. God, I'm tearing up just thinking about it, because just from those raw, free YouTube recordings, people were just, right from the start, it was meant to be that we said yes to this. And, you know, then the books happened, and now we're doing these online programs. It just keeps evolving as we allow it to. And you know, there are times where, like, really, all this has happened in the last year and a half.
That's great.
And it's sometimes mind-blowing, but, you know, one of the biggest things the Power of 10 says, and I'm sure they're not the only non-physical entity saying this, but, you know, there is no such thing as time. That's a man-made concept. And it's all vibration. It's all energy. It's all alignment. And when you can just say yes, these seemingly random things show up for you. And like the TV show, like meeting you, and you vibe. You either vibe or you don't.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I mean,
when we first spoke on the phone, it was like I've known you for 20 years. Like we were it's like we were right. Girlfriends from 20 years ago, and we just reconnected and fell right back into step. Like, that's how it felt.
Absolutely. And I felt the same way, and I love when that happens.
Tell our listeners again. Or Michelle, did you tell our listeners how you came to find Nicole, and why you chose to be on our podcast and not the 25 others that you could have been on?
Well, it's funny because my publisher gave me the lists of literally thousands of podcasters and blog talk radio and things like that. And I had sent out, you know, letters to different people, but I wasn't feeling it. And he even wanted me to outsource it and do all these things. I'm like, you know, if I'll vibe, I will find the right people. And I mean, honestly, I don't listen to podcasts very often. That's not just, I'm doing other stuff. So I'm scrolling through Instagram, and I see a post that Nicole, I don't even remember what the post was, but again, it's that intuitive nudge, right? I was like, I have to contact her. And I listened to your podcast, and I listened to like 2 minutes, and I'm like, these are my people. I must contact them. This is meant to be. And then when Nicole was talking about a show on channeling, I'm like, oh my God, of course, this is how it's supposed to all come together. And I love it. And, you know, who knows what's born of this? When people listen to that, I want to be with like-minded, like-vibing people. That's what it's all about to me. I mean, that's how we connected with our TV producer too. He's awesome. We vibe. It was easy. I didn't have to force it to happen. So yeah, I love what you guys are doing. You're really on the forefront of, and you're funny and you're real. I love people who can be spiritual and still keep it real. And I love that you drink wine. We love drinking.
Yeah. We love our wine.
And we love to have fun and just be normal.
Yeah.
Whatever that means.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
Not normal.
Yeah. Well, Michael, since, you're kind of new to this, do you have a question about channeling that you'd like to ask Michelle? Like something that's kind of on your mind or any clarification?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Channeling, whenever I think of channeling, I always, of course, associate it to childhood memories of watching somebody playing with a Ouija board or something like that. And that's like the first thing that I think of, along with probably a lot of people. I remember specifically my sophomore year of high school, and I went to a Catholic high school. One of the priests that was a teacher of mine, he told the class, like, it's an all-boys school. He's looking at us 30 guys in the class or whatever. He goes, "It's one thing that I can tell you is don't mess around with a Ouija board." That's what he said. So sometimes when I'm thinking of channeling, of course, we see like all those horror movies and things like that where you might start off trying to channel or talk to someone that's a good entity, and then all of a sudden a bad entity slips through the door.
Well, and it's funny story, because my mom, my Catholic mother, burned my Ouija board I got for a birthday present in the fireplace very dramatically. And even as a kid, I was like 8 or 9 or something, and I said, it's letters and numbers. Why is that inherently evil? It's what comes through, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this, like the priest I was talking about said he witnessed a bunch of exorcisms, and a lot of them started with a Ouija board.
Oh my goodness. And you know what? Here's the thing. I have to say it. It's so much bullshit. Like with my daughter, my youngest daughter is actually really psychic, and she hates it because she's 15. And at that age, you just want to be normal, right? But she's really into all these supernatural shows, loves horror movies. And she forced me to watch some god-awful horror movie with her.
Called
Ouija board. Okay. And I'm watching it going, this is why people fear this. Even when I first came out as a channeler, and I call it coming out of the spiritual closet, because that's how it felt. I had those images like, I would have nightmares that I'm like crawling on a wall, because that's what you see in horror movies. But when you think about it logically, okay, how does an entity attach to you when they don't have any hands? Okay, that you have the body, they don't. And so it's all vibrational. If you stay high vibe, they cannot touch you. It's the people that play with those darker energies are already dark themselves. I have not, in hundreds of thousands of readings that I did, even before I became a spirit channel, never once encountered a dangerous, scary, evil entity. Never once. But I don't go there. Like, I would never let myself go there. In the same way, I don't want to hang around serial killers in real life. Right? I mean, I'm more scared of the serial killer out there than a dead person, because as a journalist, my big joke is, do you ever see that in the newspaper? Do you ever say, oh, this person was killed by a ghost? No, because it doesn't happen. It's bullshit. It's people preying on your fears, right? Because I'm a screenwriter too, and horror sells big, but I refuse to do it because it's cheap. You just enter some scary music and play with light and dark and open a door and a window, and everyone's terrified. And it's cheap and easy, and it's popular. And I'm like, even our TV show, I told them, do not make this a scary, haunted show. I won't be a part of it. I have integrity. And the afterlife is not that. And if it's one myth I can dispel, and I'm grateful you brought this up, it makes people afraid to die. Because they think it's all these cartoon images of it, when my experience of it is loving and light-filled and amazing. Now, that's not to say to check out now. Obviously, life is awesome. So that doesn't mean, to just go there now because it's so much better. But there's nothing to fear. And if you fear it, guess what? You're going to attract it to your reality. So if you start fearing that all these scary spirits are going to come into your world, I've had less than spirits, but to me, it's like, because I can hear them and see them, I'm clairvoyant, they're not as scary to me. They're not invisible. And so for me, it felt more like, when I was doing readings like that, it was like counseling. I'm telling the spirits, it's like the ones that are more still what people call earthbound, which they're not bound. They're just still more focused on earthly matters than the amazing billions of dimensions that exist in the afterlife. And so I would really just talk to them like I talk to you guys or anybody and say, what are you doing? there's way more on the other side. It's awesome. You can manifest at will. You can eat as much ice cream as you want and not get fat. I mean, it's a great place. You should go. There's no.
But don't you think that it's just like a trick of the ego too, to keep us from opening that channel to the, to our guides, and keep it scary, and keep people thinking that it's a dark thing, because, it's our divine right to have that type of guidance, and people are afraid of it. They're afraid of who they really are and the energies that they can tap into.
And when you keep people fearful, then they're easily controlled. And so people in power historically have always made people afraid and called it the occult, like that's something evil, when it just means it's something different than your version of reality. That's all it is. And again, when you open up to it and you're not afraid of it, and again, it's been a huge journey for me not to be afraid of it. I love it now. To me now, I'm like, I embrace it, bring it. I tell everybody they have intuitive gifts. It's just how much you tune into it. And yes, it can bring you untold blessings. That's life. What I get over and over again from Power of 10, life is supposed to be fun. You're supposed to be enjoying lots of opportunities and adventures and meeting, kindred spirits with each other. We're supposed to get rid of those attachments now, so that when you go into the afterlife, it is easier. The Power of 10 calls it the way station, which I think is hilarious, because it's like a middle ground. People think, of heaven, and that's where you go, but they think of it like a house, like it's some giant house in the sky. But when you think of how limited that mental construct is, what it really is you go to this in-between place where you decide to come back or not. That's my version of it, if you believe in reincarnation, and learn your hard lessons, learn through suffering. And the Power of 10 says you don't have to do it that way anymore. Learning through suffering is an old concept. Our world still really learns through contrast, obviously.
Yes.
And yet there are those of us like us here and people who are listening who are waking up and realizing that, yes, contrast still will always show up. It's part of our human experience that we signed up for. And yet when you start learning through faith and trust, it's just such a more fun way to go about things, rather than and expecting that things work out, and knowing that there's a reason for things, and trusting that you're guided to people, and trusting those instincts. That's the path that they suggest that you keep going on. And they're here really to evolve people exponentially, because we're kind of at a crossroads in time. It's people are they call it they use the example of an egg, to where there's the yolk of humanity that sinks heavy like an egg yolk, and there's the egg whites where you fluff them up and they're all frothy, right? And there are people that are waking up spiritually and understanding that they're divine beings housed in a body, and then there's people just mired in their everyday mediocre problems and shit and drama and just dragging themselves down. And it's an interesting time to be alive, isn't it?
Yeah. It really is. And to me, it's just really about letting go of those beliefs, the old beliefs, the ones that where we think we have to work really, really hard to make things happen, or we think that we have to suffer in order to learn something. And just, once you shift your mind and you shift that belief, it's absolutely amazing to me how quickly your life will change and how easy things come to you.
Yeah, it's that breaking of that old conditioning that we've been conditioned over, eons. Eons of conditioning. And like you said, we're very much in interesting times, because I really feel like those old constructs are breaking down right now, and that everything's changing. And I love your message. It really aligns with what I like to put out there as well, and that whole kind of just expanding into your limitlessness. I've done some channeling, not me, like I haven't been the channeler. I've had some channeling sessions with this group called The Wonders. And right. They are like a group of 3,000 to 4,000 entities who reside in the 29th dimension. And, listening to them, they have 6 defining statements of human existence. And one of them is, I am limitless. And the human race tends to really live their lives from very limited state of mind, and that's the ego, because I've always said the ego can control you when you're contracted because you're smaller, and the more expansive you are, the ego has to like put its tentacles out everywhere and trying to search you and bring you back in. But the more like limitless you become, the more expansive you become, the less the ego can control you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. And it's the Power of 10 says it in a way that I appreciate. They talk about how that's how the universe expands. They don't make changes like these dramatic changes. We're all afraid of change. And it's from their perspective, a spiritual perspective, things are always expanding. Your cells are always moving. The earth is always rotating. Things are moving. And if you stand still in resistance and fear, that's when people get sick. That's when everything stops. Or alternatively, and this is the trap I get into sometimes, is trying to force things to happen. And I'm a doer by nature in the past. I've always been someone who just tries to make things happen. I catch myself. And when I allow it to unfold, as we started this conversation, a much more magical result comes of that when I just let it flow. And yeah, it's just amazing how things line up. And, there are a lot more people channeling, and that's what I love. I mean, I'm glad I have 10 to contain, not 29,000, but it's, so, I think I just wasn't really aware of this world. And, again, we went on a cruise with Abraham Hicks, with Esther Hicks, to the Caribbean a few years ago. And
I love
both
them.
Chip and I had this vision of me being up there. But at the time I was doing mediumship readings, and I really thought that was going to be it. And I didn't think I'd be Esther or step into that shoes. But it's, I think that we all have these amazing abilities to open up right now. And it is a great time because different teachers have different things. They have different modalities. Like some entities come through that are healers. And, sometimes when I get sick, I'm like, come on, Power of 10, you're in my body. Can you fix it, please? And they're like, we're here to teach. And something that they've told me that has really resonated for me with my digestive issues, that is probably still me blocking me. It's that all illnesses are caused by resistance, which is some form of fear, and everything can be cured by a plant. Like literally every illness we have that is in this world can be solved with some sort of natural organic substance. And I thought that was profound in its simplicity, right? Yeah. And so it's those things like that that'll come out, and it's just, they're simple but mind-blowing. And I do believe that as more people open up to these kinds of teachings and not freak out, it's going to change us, because there always is divine guidance, whether it's from your spirit guide, whether it's from angels, whatever you believe in. I mean, really, in the beginning, because I can be very logical too. That's the journalist in me. And so I've got my woo-woo side where I'm into all the healing arts and everything. And then I've got my side that starts asking questions, the who, what, where, why, when. Like, how does this work? But what I found with the Power of 10 is, like, what does it matter? It's the message that matters.
Yeah.
Why do you care where it's coming from?
Yes. I know Michael's starting to, well, you're like on this little kind of journey of trying to wonder what your gifts are.
Well, yeah, obviously I would wonder, but like, I feel like you guys, we had this conversation, I guess, last week. It's like sometimes, like even with you, Michelle, you said you had a near-death experience. You knew you had your psychic abilities like early on in your life. And I always joke with Lisa and Nicole because they've had things happen early on. And I just feel like I've been out to lunch for about 40 years now.
You and me, Michael.
Yeah. And I'm like looking around going, what the fudge are you guys talking about?
Because you weren't ready to turn on that intuition. Maybe you, as men, suppress it.
Well, men definitely, like we said before, suppress it. But I think also when we come in, we make a choice whether we want to be open or not. And perhaps so, like Michael, your journey wasn't meant for you to open up until now.
Right.
Maybe.
Because you bring in a valuable aspect to this podcast. So like, maybe that's why.
Yeah, I mean, maybe like if I was a teenager, I'd use my psychic powers for bad or something like that, perhaps.
Well, then you couldn't be our skeptic right now. We need you.
Yeah.
You're perfect.
Well, and you know what? You're still young. There's still time. I mean, everything comes at the right time for the right person. And it's funny that you brought this up because our new project is Your Life Repurposed. It's designed to help people find their higher purpose and their higher calling. And it's a process. I mean, we study our book Pieces Power because there's 120 lessons in there, but we also let people talk and interact directly with the Power of 10. And they hone in on your soul in a way that I can't even see, even though I am psychic. It's, for Joda, what was really getting in the way of reaching his purpose, which he really is amazing at moderating our sessions, at doing all the left brain stuff for this. I mean, someone needs to keep me grounded. And he's awesome in that position, but he was torn between his 20-year career that he'd done and doing this, honoring this higher calling. And in the process, there was a lot of that conditioning about you've got to work hard for stuff that, we talk about in our webinar that, that we see that you see that everywhere, that you got to hustle and grind to get ahead. That's the new word, right? The catchphrase is hustle. You got to grind. And I'm like, I don't feel like what we do is hustling or grinding at all. Like, this shit is effortless. I love that I can do a podcast, write a book, go and jump in the lake midweek, be able to hang out with my family and not be doing the 9 to 5 grind and hustle. That's just where I'm at. And I wanted him to be able to play with me. And so I think a lot of people are feeling that pull that they want to do something higher. They just don't know what that is. And that's what our program helps you do, is get the clarity and then the courage to honor it, right? Because a lot of people have inklings, but you brush them away and dismiss them before you even allow them to unfold. I did that with this stuff. I mean, I'm like, oh, who's going to listen to me? Everyone's going to hate me. They're going to think I'm weird. All these very human fears surface. And funny enough, as part of my calling, I have a TV show called Don't Change the Channel. So I get to talk about those feelings of feeling judged when you are stepping it up and playing your role as a creator. So we're all creative.
Yeah.
It's just in which way your soul wants to express itself. You could do thousands of things. And the Power of 10, something they taught last week to our group, is try on your life's callings. Try it on like you would an outfit and see if it fits with you right now. Because it may not. Something that you thought that you really wanted to do, and then you actually reach it and you're like, meh, it's not so great. Because whatever it is you do should light you up. You should want to get out of bed in the morning and go, yay, I get to do this. That's how I feel with this. It feels more like play than work.
Yeah.
Because work is such a conjuring of heaviness and density that I don't vibe with anymore. To me, it's like I only want to be drawn to the people and places that excite me. And once you get that momentum, oh my God. And that's why we've created this support group of people who are all on that mission. Because that's half of it, right? Is being around other people. I mean, Michael, you've got these two to support you and say, hey, when it's time, we believe in you. That's half the battle.
Sometimes when I'm hanging out with those two.
Gets a little overwhelming.
I would say it's the equivalent of like feeling like I'm like this little third grade little white kid, and I'm talking to two NBA players saying, you can do it. Just keep your dreams together and keep practicing. I'm like, you realize that my parents are like 5'2" and 5'3", and I'm probably not going to be able to get there. But like, Lisa and Nicole have been doing a very good job of keeping me, what's the right phrase?
Real, just
interested. How about that? Interested in what's going on especially with them. And, I'm happy to do this podcast because I get to hear such, my goodness, fantastic stories that sometimes are really hard to believe. And so when you bring up channeling, I remember when I was first kind of like looking into Nicole and Lisa and kind of things that they do. And we have a common friend who, I don't know if I should be able to say this, but she believes she's the reincarnate of Mary Magdalene. And I remember seeing like just like that day, someone brought out an article how they channeled Mary Magdalene, and I'm like going, "Hey, Nicole," I'm like, didn't we just meet her like a couple days ago? I'm like, does she know about this? Because like it feels so weird to like know that like, and Nicole's like, yeah, well, your higher self could basically be interviewed without you knowing it. I'm like, what?
No, well, okay, so there's
it can be quite interesting.
No, it's aspects. So we can have aspects of those older souls coming through us. You know, and other people can have. So that's our multidimensional selves, right? And like even I'm realizing, because this whole idea of multidimensional selves is blowing my mind right now, because I'm not as versed in it as other people are, but I'm starting to understand that there are people walking this earth that are part of me. Like my...
Yes.
Yeah, and that was weird.
You said it. That's what I was going to say, because when you get that your soul can be in more than one body at a time, you see, it doesn't have to be just one.
Yeah.
And we have many different dimensions of ourselves. You can wake up on any given moment morning, and say to yourself, I want to be the best and highest version of myself today. And going back to that near-death experience, you know, when I rose above and I looked at my body, what I realized is I could be in the next room with my loved ones. I could be in the doctor's room. I could be at home. I was in 5 different places at once, and probably much more than that. We see from this limited perspective, and it seems weird. And you make me crack up, Michael, because there's a very cynical side of me that when I was introduced to all this, I did the same thing. It's like, but then, you know, I think also what I've noticed with the power of 10, and I think the reason they call themselves the power of 10, is they don't really care about their identity anymore. If you've had a lot of different lifetimes, well, maybe if you're Mary Magdalene, that's kind of an important lifetime. But for most parts, right, if you've lived lots of lifetimes, most of them are rather uninteresting. So they're not, you know, they have stepped out with different names just to demonstrate aspects of their life, because all great masters, from Jesus to Muhammad to Buddha, always use their life as a metaphor, right, for lessons. And so they often will step out and talk about lessons from their life or from my life, because I've given them permission to use my life like an open book. And that took some adjustment too. Mm-hmm. But honestly, I mean, some of like anything else in life, there are channelers who seem freaky to me, a little too woo-woo even for me, and others that I just completely vibe with. Even the Seth books, which is Jane Roberts in the 70s, people kept giving me those books before I channeled. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm paying attention to a theme here, because if people keep giving me these books, there's got to be a reason. And so I started reading it, and I really did not care for it at all. I thought it was lame, and I hesitate to say this, but it just did not speak to me. But funny enough, when we wrote our first book, synchronistically, her agent, Jane Roberts' agent, came to us interested in representing us for the book.
What?
And so the reason we included the transcripts in the book, that was her idea. Oh. And so we transcribed the audio transcripts to put it in with the book, and we ended up self-publishing to get it done quicker. And she dropped out. She said, it's a great book, but I just don't know how to promote it. And I'm thinking, well, that's weird. But when you think about it, Jane Roberts was in the 70s. It's a whole different world, right? Mm-hmm. And so we're like, we're not going to take it personal. It's just not meant to be. And we let it go, and we self-published it, even though I had other publishers. It just felt like the right thing to do. And then our new publisher, Tom, was a friend of a friend. And we gave him the book. He loved it. And he's all about marketing. Like, that's his whole MO, is he's young and he has all these means of marketing things. And so he's the one that he repackaged it and gave it a different, better marketing name and launched it, and it became huge. But isn't it interesting? Because it's not always, when you feel drawn to certain things, it's not always for the reason your mind or your ego thinks it is. I mean, you would have thought that we met Jane Roberts, agent in New York, because she's supposed to be our agent, but she really helped us refine our book and get it out in the way it was meant to get out. right? It's just a stepping stone. So I don't know. That was a circuitous conversation. I don't know where I was going with that.
No, that's great. I mean, it basically just speaks to that idea of like opening up to any possibility, because there are endless possible outcomes, ways to do things that our human minds can't think of or fathom yet. So
yeah, and
right.
I was reading in one of your blogs today, you were talking about how people say that you're a badass and you're fearless, and I really love that, because it was just, so real that you said, I don't necessarily see that, but I think the most important thing that you wrote in there is facing your fears and using those fears as your guide. When you're trying to find your purpose, I think a lot of us don't find it because we're too afraid to let go of the safety net that we already have, and to truly just face our fears and say, oh, I'm afraid of that. That must be, I mean, for me, I've used that as a guide. Like if it scares the hell out of me, damn, that's where I need to go.
Yeah, totally. And that blog was born of, I used to teach yoga teachers. So she was one of my yoga teachers, and she had worked at a state job for a long, long time, didn't like it, had good benefits, was trying to make the transition. And she said something, and she finally left her job, and I just, congratulated her. I knew that was a long time in coming. And she said, well, you're fearless and a badass. And I'm like, I'm cracking up. I'm like, well, that's great that's how the world perceives me, because I'm just human like everyone else, as my dear husband can attest. I can be a hot mess most of the time too, until I remember my true nature. And then everything becomes magical. But it is definitely, I'm always on the lookout for making it more consistent, right? I mean, I sync to my human self, and then it's kind of awesome that she thinks I'm badass, but I also want people to understand and that I am me, that I am an authentic human being. I think that's important for any kind of teacher to be real, because when you're empathic like I am, part of the thing that I face is I can feel when people are not being legit and real. I want to scream bullshit every time someone is saying they are who they're not. And I know that we all try and put our best face and act as if and all that good stuff, but show up, be real, talk about I want to hear what you're learning about. Like Nicole, you're telling me how you're understanding that multidimensional self. That excites me. When someone is learning things and sharing that and being raw and saying, this is what I'm learning. And when we hold back on that, but going back to what Michael was saying, it's no accident, I think, that you are all together, because as I'm blithering away, I'm thinking how much I appreciate Joda's groundedness, and he's listening to me. I can feel him listening to me in a way that I need. It's a balancing of energies. And so while I may inspire him to go further down the path and has opened up his brain because he's very evidence-based, but he's seen all these seemingly impossible things become reality. And the more you see that, the more it becomes your reality. It's not a, woo-woo magical thing. It brings it back to earth. But I appreciate, I don't think I'd be good with another two woo-woo partner. I think we'd fly off into outer space together and never be seen again. So I think it's good to have a balance of energy.
And one thing that actually really helps me to transition into accepting of the channeling, I think, was watching her talking to thousands of mediumship clients and being at these events and watching people just crying happy tears of joy because she's saying things that she couldn't possibly know. And so because we so use our human senses of our ears and our eyes, again, being the left brain type of person I was, that was a lot of evidence for me of like, wow, this is actually real. This is just because I can't see it or hear it myself. I'm seeing all this evidence pile up. And so then as soon as the power of 10 started coming through, I like to say that it was like a big hug for my soul, just in that 10 minutes of talking to them the first time. And that first recording is on the website, and it's heavily edited because I'm just sitting there dumbfounded and silent. because I know I'm not talking to Michelle right now. And it was a trip, but it was beautiful.
Yeah, that's gotta be interesting for you. Sorry, Michelle. To think about, it's your wife's body, but it's no longer her speaking to you anymore. That's gotta be interesting. I think for someone, especially someone who's more left brain to start with, and trying to make that transition or balancing over more to right brain so that you have that even left and right.
Whole brain.
Yeah, whole brain.
We've been talking about that.
Yeah, because our last week's guest, Jim, he describes himself as whole brained, and I love that. Where he's like an absolute genius, and he can just tap into like the left side logic, but also the intuitive, creative right side, in a way that many people can't. But it's nice to have that balance. And so, what's it like to be for you to experience your wife's body talking to you and maybe moving, but knowing it's not her?
At first, well, like I said, at first it was a little strange. And it wasn't until, I want to say it was at one point they opened her eyes, but I mean, initially we would either be on the couch or she would just lay in bed, and I would sit by the bed and ask questions, and she was just basically still. And as it progressed, they were like a toddler with walking. It was funny. The first time I remember they got up and they're like, "Oh, this is fun." And it's just because they haven't been in a body in so long. They're so childlike. It's awesome. But just the other day we were doing a session, and after we were done, I was realizing that I'm so used to this now is I don't even see her as Michelle, because I feel their energy, and I know that they're just using her voice and her hand gestures, and it's just I don't know, it's a little hard to explain, but I've completely shifted over to that's just my new normal now.
And he's lit up afterwards. I was gonna say he has the best seat in the house, because we started recording these so I could remember, because I go full complete trance. I mean, it comes naturally to me, and I'm learning that that's not usually the case. A lot of times people are just partially in trance and they remember a lot of it. But for me, I tell people, I joke that it's like being drunk, where you were there, but it starts coming back to you the next day, and you have little tidbits. But I have to listen to the recording like everyone else. But Joda gets.
Michael can relate to that, right, Michael?
That's a good relatable experience. That's how it is. And but when I see him, or even the before and after of our audience, when people engage with the Power of 10, it's amazing, because in the beginning, everyone's kind of unsure, like, what is this about? And by the end, everybody's lit up. Talk about a difference from mediumship to channeling, because in mediumships, everyone's crying, they've had closure, there's all this, grief counseling. And yet when they talk to, spirit guides, people are they look like they're high, only it's not on drugs. They seriously look high, because they're just so happy. They just don't even feel like any of their problems matter anymore. And that's what it's all about. That's why we keep doing it, is because it's so amazing and so fun, and people love it. And but again, this is great for Joda. I'm so grateful that he's on this path and journey with me. I couldn't do this without him. I mean, he really is the Jerry to my Esther, and he grounds me, and he helps me. And I think if you're contemplating channeling, as a lot of your audience may be, that I do think it's important to have that presence, whether it's a good friend or someone that's more experienced in channeling, just someone to hold the space for you. Yeah. Because when I come back to reality, it can be jarring. And I've got all these happy, blissed out people kind of in my face, like wanting a piece of me. And I tell them, like, give me a minute. Let me go to the bathroom. Let me wash my hands. Let me walk around barefoot. Then we can unpack this and talk about what just transpired. But remember, I've been almost like asleep for the last couple hours. Mm-hmm. So Joda will put his hand on my leg, like, come back and give me lots of water, because I'm ridiculously thirsty. It does take a lot of energy to channel that. And so I think you need that in some way. I mean, Esther's obviously been doing it for 30 years, so she can channel for longer periods of time than I can. I'm still learning. It's still evolving, and it probably will for many years to come, but I love it.
Okay, that's where we're going to stop today, but don't miss next week's episode, part 2, because that's when Michelle goes under into channel and brings forth the power of 10. And we ask them direct questions and get some very fun answers in return. You're not going to want to miss it. So thanks again for listening to us today. If you have any questions that you'd like to send in to us, please send them into our email, info@enlightenup.us, or you can ask them through our Twitter feed at enLIGHTenUP. And if you like what you're listening to, please subscribe to us in iTunes, or please leave us a rating and a review, because we need those right now to separate us from everyone else. You can also follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And of course, if you need any more information on Michelle, you can go to our website, enlightenup.us, under guest speakers, and you can read more about her there with links to her website. So thanks again, and we'll catch you next week on episode 9.